Good afternoon. I would like to call the May 22nd, 2025 Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is being recorded through Zoom teleconference. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Committee Member Amat.
Here.
Committee Member Branuelos. Here. Committee Member Collins is absent with notice. Committee Member Kelly.
Here.
Committee Member Morass.
Here.
Vice Chair Clark.
Here.
Chair Chenault.
Here.
All members are present with the exception of Committee Member Collins.
Okay, now we move to Pledge of Allegiance. Committee Member Armat will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm going to lead? Yes, no. I don't know if I remember it, but. What, somebody.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I can track. Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to public comment. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all general public comments on the agenda items. All who wish to speak, including committee members and staff, need to be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please state your name and the item you're commenting on before speaking. We will take public comment for items listed on the agenda. Do we have any registered speakers?
Chair Chenault, there are no registered speakers.
Okay, we will now move to the consent calendar. Are there any committee members who would like to comment on the consent item for the meeting minutes of April 29th, 2025? Okay, so these are the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting minutes of April 29th, 2025. The recommendation is respectfully recommended that the City Council approve the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting minutes of April 29th, 2025. Can I have a motion to approve the item?
My motion.
Okay.
I'll second it that
Okay.
the Measure U committee, not the city council.
Okay. I'm reading what they have. Okay, yeah. Okay, second by Vice Chair Clark. Deputy City Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion by Committee Member Amat, second by Vice Chair Clark to approve the consent calendar. I will do a roll call. Committee Member Amat.
Yes.
Committee Member Branuelos.
Yes.
Committee Member Kelly.
Aye.
Committee Member Morass.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clark. Chair Chenault.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0 to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a report out from staff on item 6A, discussing the ad hoc committee's draft transmittal letter to City Council for the proposed Measure U spending plan for fiscal year 25-26. Based on discussion, I would like to task it to the 3 members of the ad hoc committee who are present to complete the letter by the June 4th deadline. Is there anyone, ad hoc committee members?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a proposed budget that we can see or not?
There is a
It's hard
proposed
to,
budget
it's hard to come up with something if you don't know what's in the budget. Proposed budget.
on the PowerPoint presentations that I provided. Those have a lot of the proposed numbers. It's not a full-on proposed budget document. We do not have that.
Oh.
We just have the numbers built in and our what we call data charts that show the revenue over expenditures, how it's broken down by category and departments. I can send you that information.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could. Yeah,
I
yeah.
printed it out so when we meet, we can go over everything you want.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I
Yeah,
got better too.
saw
I
it
can print it
earlier
out, but-
today. But
Okay, yeah, you and I can go over it.
yeah, definitely. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what's in the proposed budget.
Have to be in before
I believe it has to be in by June 4th.
Yeah,
Yes.
June 4th is the absolute last day. So if we could get it in the day, at least the day before,
Okay.
that allows us time to review it and get it attached to the.
No, there's no
staff
problem with
report.
that. Just, I just got it. There's
Mhm.
something that I've got to check with the chief
Mhm.
before I can put my input into the letter.
We already have our ideas and kind
Yeah.
of a rough draft of it. We just
Yeah.
need to insert our facts.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And you were going to reach out to the police chief and.
yeah, or Captain Brock,
Okay.
you know, whoever's available
Okay,
that has knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I tease you all the time.
and I just.
No,
wanted
you have a lot of
to,
knowledge, I know.
Like reiterate
Yeah.
too, it would be nice if you were to provide like, you know, the challenges that the city's facing, you know, along with the pension liability and, the.
Right, no, I understand all that, but we don't have anything to do with the pension liability.
No.
You know, so there's not really anything we can say about that. But I'm more interested in, I talked to the chief about it, and so I got to talk to him again about it.
I
Okay,
think what I'm hearing Tiffany say is we've showed you some information related to the changes in the pension contributions that are affected by state policy changes. And it's affecting our ability to hit the staffing ratios that are called for in the resolution that governs the use of Measure U revenues. So if we don't have those dollars because they've been sent to Sacramento to keep PERS solvent that otherwise could have been invested in officers, roads,
Yeah.
other staffing and services, it's, you know, what we're thinking about is, what about the committee 10 years from now or 20 years from now? It may be helpful for them to know that you were talking about this in 2025
Mhm.
and to document what's happened, because we gave you some information between 2015 and 2025. And it's interesting information to know that $8 million would have showed up in the general fund for us to use this year.
Mhm.
And some of that would have been Measure U money that could have been invested in police and fire, and today is not able to be done that way. So it definitely is affecting Measure U, because there's a requirement under that resolution to hit a certain target on staffing. And the answer to that is, the only way to do that is to cannibalize another city or a combination of city operations and cut 18 jobs somewhere else in the lean organization in order to do that, right? So that's the challenge, is how do we, it's something to potentially document. And so we're thinking about the fact that this could be valuable to people down the road. And I know we talked beforehand, when we had the meeting, the first meeting, and we talked to you a little bit about the pension costs, we also shared with you the insurance environment
Mhm.
has changed remarkably. So maybe there's another opportunity to document that. It's up to you to document it and just share it for posterity. And I also know that when we started to share some of the successes on the dropping crime rates and the investments that we've made, even the technology with alerting and getting the firefighters out the door
Mhm.
has had a noticeable change just in the last year. And those are investments that are being made because of Measure U.
Mhm.
And you may want to document some of that so that it doesn't get lost to, you know, an edge of see, I think it's harder for the people 10 years from now or 20 years from now to find the staff report that had that document. It will be a lot easier for them to find your annual report. There's one
So what you're saying, like,
report to the council every year.
for the crime situation, we should maybe put something in the letter that addresses how the crime has dropped because of Measure U, is that what
Well,
you're
it's
saying?
not necessarily because of Measure U, but
Well, I'm sure it helped,
I can't
yeah.
not see the fact that when our revenue was dropping and then the revenue went up and then the crime dropped. I mean, I see a pattern there, which is hard to see year to year, but you can see it over 7 or 8 years of investment now where that is dropping. But even if you don't you don't have to necessarily make a statement that it dropped. You could show an exhibit you could pull that image, ask the staff for a copy of that image and insert it as an attachment to your report.
Okay.
So those are the things that we're thinking that may help, you know, your committee next year, along with the committee 10 and 20 years from now.
Well, is it possible for the staff to like provide something that shows the increase of the pension?
We can give you copies of the slide deck where you can copy and paste it. If we
Okay.
gave you a PDF, I don't think you can do that, but if we gave
Yeah.
you the raw document and asked you, if you wanted to lift some of those and
Yeah.
and copy
Oh,
and
that'd be
paste it, we
help,
could do
yeah.
that.
And the PDF versions are attached to all of the meetings that you can access that way, but I can certainly send you
Okay,
the actual PowerPoint presentations.
okay.
Um,
That's good to know because I didn't realize that's what you wanted.
I have a
No,
question.
it's up to you. Ultimately, this is all up to.
No, we want to, no, we want to help.
Yeah.
Delia and I want to help. We want to do what's good for the, the city.
Mhm.
And if that's going to help, like you said, 10 years down the road, then I'm more than happy to do it. I just need you guys to help me with the data because I don't have the data.
Is this a 10-year? Was it a 10-year tax or?
Initially, it was a 10-year tax. It was temporary.
Uh-huh.
And then a subsequent ballot measure a couple of years ago
Mhm.
removed the sunset on that tax. And so the only way that changes is if the voters change the tax.
Okay. And because it's considered a general, but then council designed it to be more like life and safety. Do you think, and this is just thinking outside the box, so we can generate more money as a city? Can some of that, and I'm looking at the numbers, are pretty tight. Can that be used towards some sort of marketing so we can, I don't know, promote more businesses coming to Hemet and eventually have more revenue in Hemet and be able to hire more cops and fire?
Mhm.
I know it's probably,
Yeah.
it's more.
I know what
it's
you're, I
economic.
know what you're asking,
Yeah.
and I think that, ultimately, the council will make decisions on the budget. I think they saw an important investment that was needed in order to create an environment where business would invest. And so in 15, we had crime that was, spiking. And when the conversation started, it almost started to see, just talking about it started to make some changes in town. People became concerned about it. And then the people put the money, put their money where their mouth was. And they said, we're gonna fight. We're coming after this crime wave. And we're gonna help invest in our fire department as well. And those investments have been made now over multiple years, and we can see what the crime numbers show us over time. But when you create an environment that's safer, it helps. We still have money that goes to economic development
Mhm.
on the non-Measure U side of the general fund. And we weren't able to fill that position until a year and a half ago. And so because of that performance with the recovery financially, we were able to invest money into a person who's busy today at a meeting in Riverside promoting the city of Hemet.
Mhm.
And he's planting a lot of seeds, and we're expecting those seeds will produce fruit someday soon.
Okay.
And there really already are, but I think in some ways it's the same. The challenge of moving anything away from the current methodology is that it affects people and staffing. And so if there was ever an interest in adjusting allocation, my only guidance is to be extremely careful and to make those changes incrementally, very slowly, because we have most of the dollars are invested in police staffing. And so it would affect police staffing if we started to change numbers. And we just have to be really careful
Right.
about how we would do that.
Yeah, I was thinking more like a very small amount grant writer,
Mhm.
so maybe they can have more staffing, but
And
sometimes there's opportunities out there for
Right.
grants and
And when you see the general fund performance over the last several years, even the general fund excluding the Measure U, there's been some really nice recovery. It's kind of flattened out for the last 2 years. So we had great recovery coming out of COVID, and now the sales tax, which is the largest revenue source in the city, is kind of flatlined and shrunk a little bit. Our highs on sales tax were 2 or 3 years ago. We've actually come down a little bit in the actuals. But a number of others, most other cities, including the state of California, are also experiencing a slowdown right now. So it's not unusual.
Does anyone have any more questions for the ad hoc committee?
You have a question?
I actually have a question for Mr. City Manager. What would you say to somebody that's wanting to know what the correlation is between the pension liability and the initial intent that the Measure U fund is supposed to have, which they would think is more towards police and fire and keeping the people of Hemet safe.
Yeah. What the committee didn't know in 2016 or 17 when it was created is that the state would change the rules and the goalposts. So the dollars that it takes to fund an officer or a firefighter today is more expensive than it was at that time. So even though they wanted to and envisioned growing even more staffing, it's not possible because of the number of dollars that go to fund and that are required to put an individual on the street. And so it's and yeah, I think I will write a book on this. Because I just found myself at the right time in my career to see it start, to be part of a closed session when one of those decisions was made, and to see and experience the benefits as the individual, but also see the impacts as a city manager on my communities, right?
Right.
It's taken away dollars and there were other changes. The state took property tax money and never gave it back. Yeah,
It took
We-
pension money and
Can't you,
everything.
can't you sue them?
not really. We enjoyed
I'm so
such a
sick of this
robust.
state. I don't know.
We were all
anyway.
living the dream on the .com era in
Yeah.
local government. So
Yeah,
the money was flowing. No one was unhappy in 1998 and 99. 3 or 4 years earlier, yes, they were still grumpy from earlier adjustments. But by 98, 99, the money was flowing and new ideas were coming on how we can invest those dollars.
Well,
And I guess my point is I've seen the impact from the beginning to the end. And there's a story to be told that I probably should write down and share. Because I think this committee and the work that you're doing is actually, it's going to show up in my book. Because this is a great example.
Talk about
We ran the
pressure.
numbers to show you.
yeah.
I mean, the work that Tiffany did to tell me to answer the question, if we had the 2015 pension numbers, how many more dollars would we have in 2025? And the answer is $8 million.
So what,
Last year, we talked,
what is the solution? I mean, what is the solution? How can we increase pensions for officers to get more officers? I mean,
no, I
There's no-
don't think pensioning, well, first of all,
benefits.
they have very good benefits and
Yeah.
there's not a need to increase the benefits. And in the future, the pension funds are not structured in a way to support enhancing pensions. What we need to see is the generation of people that have received the generosity. Someday that bubble will move through the system. And, at some point, all of us, right?
Yeah.
All of us, we're in it, and teachers too.
Yes.
We're gonna move on and then there'll be a new round of PEPRA employees that have a little lighter benefits. And then the choice will be made by electeds at that future date. And then liability is finally paid off. Will they, after a market, remarkable market performance, will they repeat the challenges and arguably mistakes of 1999 by reaching a little too farther than they should have? I mean, if they had done a 5% growth or 10%, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But they grew the pensions by 50% for public safety and 33% for non-safety on average. That's
Huge.
an enormous jump. And it didn't work out partly because of the unanticipated, very significant downturn in the economy.
But, okay, but how can Measure U help with that? I don't understand where we're going with that.
Imagine the city of Hemet. This is a really important test for all of us. Imagine the city of Hemet without $16 million a year. We probably wouldn't be the city that would be able to pay a competitive wage or provide competitive benefits to attract and retain the staff that we have. So we would potentially have to adjust our standards and consider staff that were essentially rejected by other communities. Today, we have the interest and privilege of, insisting on the best of the best as we move people through academy.
Yeah.
And not to take someone that may be looking for a city that, they couldn't find employment somewhere else. But we would also have less staff with $16 million. We're supporting 40+ positions today with Measure U, so we would clearly have many fewer officers on the street. And frankly, I think by 2016, we hadn't bought a lot of vehicles at that time, and so some of the money went to restore the vehicles and the apparatus that we needed. We're still waiting for 3 of these apparatus right now, but we wouldn't have had the equipment, and we would probably, I can tell you, we would have had a hard time investing in the Taser 10 toolkit. It's a suite of products that are they're already helping us do more work faster and allow more time on the street and reduce liability for the officers and people that are encountering public safety issues.
No, I understand all that,
But we wouldn't do that. We would, and when we don't have those investments, we would see a higher crime rate.
but the thing, okay, this is what I'm confused about. Are we limited to hiring new officers because the pension is so high and taking away $8 million? That's what I'm asking. How can that be solved so we can hire more officers?
I think the challenge is we need to think of the city as a whole, right? It's a whole pie, but about 79% of the pie is invested in police and safety. We can carve out an additional $4 million out of that pie because you're only occupying 79% of the pie right now. We can take them up to 83% of the pie, right? But it's going to come at the expense of the library and staffing in public works and other locations. And we just wouldn't have as many people in those other locations.
Okay, but so there's
What-
no, I'm thinking there's no,
What drives Measure U
there's no
is
solution.
sales tax. So sales
no, I
would
know
really have
that.
to increase.
No, I
so
know that,
Measure U
yeah.
had more to,
Well, that's why I sent my whole family to buy,
but it's
Hondas
the
and,
increase of
Emmett.
that revenue
Mhm.
is what's really being.
No, I understand all that, but it's kind of discouraging because it almost seems like we're at a standstill, basically. Because
I think I'd like to think about it differently. I think that Measure U has been the single best decision that the voters and the people of Hemet made in the last 10 years, because this city was on in a trajectory headed in the wrong direction. And today, I think we have a different environment. We have a declining crime rate, both violent and property crime. And we also have return to revenue. So our revenue has never been stronger. We closed last year's budget at $71 million of cash in the bank. And we're investing even more than that because all of the dollars that we have, sometimes they get committed to projects, but they sit until the project gets delivered, right? So the $950,000 that we have allocated for trash enclosures that haven't been built yet, it's busy earning money at 3.4% and contributing to our economic success. But we're in much better shape than we were in 2016 when the voters made this decision, and we were about out of money. We were about to start selling assets and cutting staff again, just as they did in 2010-ish when they sold the garbage franchise.
no, I think Measure U is great. I have no problem with Measure U. I'm just thinking, I don't think we're up to capacity right now in the police department. Are we, Captain Brock? How many officers do we have?
The numbers I got as of yesterday were, with what we have in the hiring process right now, will be 2 away from fully staffed.
Oh, only 2 away? And how about the fire department?
We are awaiting some job offers to go out, and that will put us at fully staffed.
Oh, okay.
But I
That's
think
great.
But the other question that
Yeah.
needs to be asked is fully staffed enough? And I think for fire, the answer is probably no, right? We showed you,
Oh, no.
a lot of information about how busy these guys are. They are remarkable. Every one of them deserves a,
Yeah.
big attaboy.
Oh, yeah.
And atta-girl, because they just work so hard in the city. So adequate staffing for fire would be a minimum of another station or 2.
Oh, okay.
And for the police department, is 91 adequate? Maybe not. I think if we asked what they could do with 110 officers, they'd be able to tell you what else we could do and enhance the level of service that we provide. So I think sometimes the challenge becomes, there's only so many dollars. It's a matter, the challenge for public policy officials, and glad I'm not one of those legislators that has to make these tough decisions, is how do you balance the needs of an entire organization? And it's a really hard decision because there are a lot of different constituencies. I think that clearly this city council for 10+ years, different people, has made it a priority, public safety a priority. It's reflected in their budget. A budget typically reflects the council's priorities. And what the council said is, we want to put most of our dollars into public safety, and we know that that will benefit the other parts of our community. And that's the decision that's been made for the last 10 years. And I think we see evidence that it's working.
So we have 1.2 officers per thousand, right?
We have 1.0 per thousand right now.
Okay.
So with about 91,000 people,
Yeah.
we have 91
Okay.
FTE
So
positions.
just and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but just as an example, how many officers per thousand are in Menifee?
I don't know Menifee's numbers, but I know Temecula is 1 per thousand,
Oh, is it?
1.0.
Okay, because they don't have hardly the
I
problems we
personally heard
have
the
here
city
in
manager.
Emmett, you know,
Um,
No, we're-
really happy to
we're-
report that.
well, we're probably right where we should be then, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the needs of officer, this is a legitimate question, because I'm not sure that 1.0 is enough. If we
That's
can
what I'm
pass the
saying.
challenges that we
Yeah.
have maybe with Temecula, we might want a higher staffing ratio, but Measure U dollars and the other dollars that are generated by the city. I'm not sure exactly how Temecula invests the rest of their dollars. But we're investing in camera technology, drone technology, and we're often the first to deploy. And so we're ahead of a number of these other agencies in terms of deploying technology. The Axon bundle is state of the art, out the door, and it just got installed on everything's live now.
What's the
And we bought it 3 months ago.
what is that?
It's an investment in state of the art tasers,
Oh, okay.
AI technology for use of report writing. Can you imagine how cool
Oh,
that is?
no, the AI is wonderful.
Training
Right.
technology with
I know, I've used it.
visual, VR, AR, VR, augmented virtual reality.
Mhm.
And then what was the fourth component?
The cameras in all of our cars.
Cameras in all the cars that hadn't ever been in the cars before.
I think the drones are fantastic too.
Yeah.
That drone center at the police department, wow, it's quite, I was really impressed with that.
It seems,
Really
if I
good.
can. We said that we're right where we should be compared to Temecula as far as how many officers, the ratio of citizens that we have. However, our crime seems to be worse than Temecula, so it seems like we should be at a higher number than Temecula is.
Yeah,
then.
crime rates and officer ratios don't necessarily align.
Mm.
And there are a lot of other variables that go into explaining why certain communities may be different than others. But I think we need to be careful we should not overly rely on ratios.
Mhm.
They're a good barometer, but the needs of each individual community are different. And I think one of the ways I was trying to express myself was if Temecula and Hemet, we both have 1.0 per thousand staffing, we would enjoy having more.
Mhm.
The challenge is we have other responsibilities to our community, like, making the library accessible to the community, because we can take those jobs in the library and buy you 4 or 5 more officers with them.
Would that be so bad though? I mean,
Well,
temporarily, until we get the crime under control better. Yeah, like,
I think
That's a library position in a community. You're gonna get.
but seriously, we have to
Especially
make
in the summer.
sacrifices to better the community,
I
at
think
least for a little while.
that's where this is why it's nice not to be that council member, right? Because council members have a tough job. Because I've met the library constituency before in another community, and they are a very active constituent. And they'll remind you that a lot of people want to visit the open library and not have a shuttered building.
But we also want to go to the library and not worry about getting mugged or something, right?
I know, I think the challenge is, cities have to have a finance department, all these various services that we provide, we have to take care of roads too.
Yeah.
And there's only, so many dollars in the pie. And this council is they're making a very strong investment in public safety. About as much as they can do without really compromising the ability to keep, stay afloat with a little bit of oxygen for the rest. I'm comfortable working in a lean environment because I've worked in some really small cities. And I've also worked in one large city for a long time. And I know that the large cities do have a lot of dollars that they can deploy to meet the needs of the day.
Yeah.
We're kind of that middle ground. The non-safety side operates more like a very small city. We're very, very lean. And from another perspective, public safety, we're still millions and millions of dollars away from where we really want to be and need to be. I mean, we have capital needs beyond that. I mean, most of our, 4 of our 5 stations need to be replaced. That's $20 million minimum per station. Our police station needs to be replaced. We're talking $50 to $100 million to do that. These are needs beyond just the staffing that we have to contemplate. Our roads are somewhere between 50 and probably $90 million behind where they need to be. So we have these enormous other challenges. So we could cut every other department, but these guys are going to be they're going to be running through some roads that they don't want to take those new cars through.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to equip them with 4-wheel drive.
It seems
I
like
think
there has to be a way to get this done,
Well, I think that part of the challenge is, how do you generate revenue, right? So I think we're trying to figure out ways that we can create new revenue streams for the city. So one of the best things to do under any economic strategy is to invest in what you have. And right now our economic engine is the Hemet Auto Mall.
Right.
And I've known before I took this job that we had empty parcels out there. I also knew, having done my due diligence, I knew when it was built, and before my interview, I studied the condition of the streets in the economic engine of the city of Hemet, and I discovered potholes, cracking streets in an environment that wasn't conducive to car sales, which are generating dollars to help pay for services and take care of roads and hire police and firefighters. And so we had a conversation in my interview about the importance of the auto mall. And now we have an economic incentive on the table to try to encourage a new investment or two, a couple new dealerships that will generate new revenue as soon as they're built, both Measure U and general fund revenue to help grow the city. We also learned in that exercise in the last year and a half that another agency in our region had come after every one of our dealers and asked them to not expand, but to relocate.
Oh,
Can you imagine losing our auto mall and turning it
yeah.
into a used auto mall? Because that's the
Well,
casualty.
they're not
of
gonna
that.
leave, are they?
No, because we've made sure.
Now that's nothing for me to
We
worry
create an
about.
environment where they know that they can expand with support from the city. If
Yeah.
they need it to renovate or expand, a lot of them want to expand their service bays right now. And we've also tried to, incentivize someone else to show up. So we're creating an environment to help raise the economic profile of the city. We own the property at State and Sanderson. And next year, we're going to be paving Sanderson between Dominigoni and Stetson. If you've noticed, it hasn't really been treated much since it was built. And it wasn't our money. It was our money. It was RCOG money. Or RC, one of the agencies, maybe RC. It was TUMP funds. TUMP funds paid for a lot of that. Which is a pool of regional dollars that we pay into with projects, but that street needs a serious overlay, and we're gonna lose that street if we're not careful. And it's the entryway in many respects to the city of Hemet. It's certainly the entryway to that parcel that we own. And we're having conversations with developers today about who might be interested in purchasing that from the city. And what type of investments would they be bringing to the city?
Is that residential or commercial?
It's commercial.
On which corner is, I live in
It's
between.
it's the north. I know we're gonna wanna find a shopping center close to you someday
Yeah,
too, right?
because I tried to bring Rio Ranch into the new Sprouts building. But the timing was not okay with them. And I couldn't promise if we can get you a permit within 6 months, so.
Well, come talk to me next time. I'll make sure.
Right now.
Yeah, but I did try on my own, because I'm also a realtor, but I'm a consultant for developers.
Oh,
And
that's somebody to know.
And since I work with developers, for them, time is money. So I know they were looking into a property in McSweeney, and they were looking at the times too, like how long is it gonna take to get approved and all this stuff. So then.
Yeah.
They shift from Hemet to Paris.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the reasons. Not only did we invest in economic development, we've also, we're a few days away now from receiving some initial preliminary recommendations on things that we can do to make sure that the development process is smoother for our customers.
Right.
I can tell you, we don't have enough people to deal with the volume and we're farming some things out to consultants, which slows down the process. So in some ways, we're probably going to bring in more positions in-house and move the consultants along. But even after doing that, we're still going to be down a few people because we're investing in public safety. It's a balance, and we can't have it all because we really need it in every
We need
location.
the tax dollars. I
The
agree
hardest
with
part is
you.
trying to strike the right balance. And so this city pivoted from an environment of a 72, 28% model to now an environment of a 78, 22 or so, profile. We've moved the investment up on public safety to meet the needs of the hour 10 years ago. We're not done yet. There's still a lot of things that need to change, but we see the positives that are happening. And when the crime rate comes down, more investors want to come into Hemet.
Yes.
Houses go up in value, people's equity goes up in value. We're probably the next location. We're going to be affordable for a short amount of time. And then I think, like a lot of Southern California, it's just going to there's not going to be, this is great weather. A lot of the rest of the country is envious of us because of our weather and access to all the things that we have access to.
Well, maybe,
This is going to be a place where the property values are going to continue to go up. And they're rising today at about 5 or 6%, which is pretty good.
And same thing, sorry, going back to the library. So you have a lot of younger parents buying homes. So they don't only just look at safety, but they look at, oh, what can my kid have? What do they offer for my kids? Like,
Right.
like Boys and Girls Club, sports.
they have that skate park too now. Yeah.
They have that skate park, but a lot of times, like especially for the summer, they go through the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree because when my kids were young, I used to take them to the library a lot. That's my daughter over there.
So this is
Yeah.
She wanted to come and sit in today.
Well, maybe Captain Brock can answer this because for some reason, Hemet is attracting the homeless and the criminals. So if we could see it's trying to get a hold on that problem, obviously crime would go down. So why are they all coming to Hemet is what I want to know. Because I was looking at some statistics. And for example, CityNet talked to 1,900 people between July and April of this year. And in Menifee, they talked to 2. So we're attracting people here to Hemet that's causing part of this crime problem.
And like the same I was saying, the more our houses increase in value, the less homeless we're gonna have. Like it's kind of like it's a work in progress, but it's like City of Fontana. It took them 10 years
So right now they do homeless counts in the county every other year. I think the numbers just got published last Thursday. I met with them, I think last Monday, to see what the Riverside County count looks like. Most of the cities in Riverside County were down. We were one of those. The numbers this count were 33% lower than they were in the prior count. It was about 65 people lower. The number of it is 209, so it's 209 versus minus 65 is the number this time. It's not enough, right? Then the correct answer is 0, where we need to be. But if I can back up a bit and put some context on the whole California, and I may have already mentioned this because I've started to talk about this a little bit. When the state found itself in economic hurt in 2008, 9, 10, by 2013, we had new pension policies in place for everybody to lower future costs. But I think we also saw the state shift some responsibilities to local government on prisons and criminal penalties. So penalties changed, and yesterday's felony is today's misdemeanor. And what that meant was the state didn't have to build as many prisons. they saved money. They didn't have to pay for as many prison guards, they saved money. They didn't have to pay for as many meals and healthcare for those prisoners. And those policy changes, which were macro level, have saved the state of California millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 10 years. In some ways, they almost needed to financially do something like that because they couldn't afford to continue on the same pace, partly because of the pensions. It is relatable to 1999 and 2000 when the costs started to rise exponentially. It took away dollars. And so we moved and there was also a policy change, which was we'd rather invest in prevention and move away from incarceration. And so we moved from sort of basically a punitive, we still have a punitive, there are consequences for crime. But yeah, there's less today than there used to be, right? 3 strikes and you're out is not the same legislation that's in play today. Or when a criminal goes in front of a district attorney and a prosecutor. And so there has been more the state has not invested in incarceration, but the way they did 10 or 15 years ago. And I think we see some of that impacting California, not just in Hemet, but in other areas. But if you travel to other locations in and around California, you'll see that there are enormous encampments in other locations and have been in the heart of Orange County. The Santa Ana River was full of people for a mile on both directions, or both sides of the river channel. That's been cleaned up, but LA still has a lot of areas. Sacramento, I've spent a lot of time in Sacramento. I drove Joe Bales around Sacramento and showed him a few encampments so he could understand what does Hemet look like versus, a cul-de-sac of broken down motor homes and trailers that you can't even pull because they're so dilapidated. We don't have that look and feel. We definitely have people, but we only have one really strong commercial corridor. And unfortunately, some of our older hotels, they're all located on that corridor. There's an affordable room to rent. And we have challenges. Those hotels are contributing to challenges in Hemet. And that's why the city council has put an incentive on the table to help them change the type of business they are, or convert them to something else other than a hotel, maybe a senior housing apartment or something like that. But I think Hemet's solution lies in one of the solutions. It's, we need help from the state's policies, which have changed recently a little bit. The pendulum swung a little bit back. But we need help in state policy changes. We locally need to move some of these hotels along to their next higher and better use, because we can't afford 2,000 calls of service from our police and firefighters at 10 hotels every year. It's just,
that's crazy.
and vouchers are, that we don't control. Vouchers in the county and the state and the federal government are winding up in Hemet hotels.
Yeah.
And so if we take away
Yeah, I
the
know.
hotels,
I learned about that too.
if we take away the hotels, they might find a different city with other hotels that look like.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're getting like vouchers for 3 months to stay in a hotel. So why wouldn't you come to Emmett? Hey, I'm gonna stay in that hotel for 3 months, get my drugs, get my money, everything's good. I'm going to Emmett. You can't find that. I don't think you can find motels like that in Temecula or Menifee or Murrieta, like what we have here.
Well, those, some of those towns weren't here 50 years ago or 70 years ago when these assets were built. But we definitely need to update our hotels. We need the private sector to step up and invest in a quality product. We need them to take care of it. We need them to say no to cash under the table type of, transactions. And we strongly discourage use of government vouchers for any hotel that does not have let's say a low, if they have a higher call volume for police and fire calls, we don't think the state, federal, or other local agencies should allow a voucher to visit a Hemet hotel.
No, I agree with you.
The only way those people that are already in a vulnerable place into a vulnerable environment, and that's not healthy for them.
Well, the only way you're gonna do something about the homeless is to really get tough. I mean, not reward them for coming here.
There's a
Well,
lot
we're
of,
not rewarding them.
What's that?
there's a lot of enabling in this.
Yeah, I mean,
which is Why they
enabling,
come.
yeah.
Well, and I don't know what enabling means.
Well,
But we'd have to
but-
find that, but
No, for
it
the,
doesn't help to offer money to people. It's better to offer money to organizations that can help serve them in a different way. But what we don't want to do is enable people. And we have a rule against panhandling. We only see it in a couple of locations here, which is good. But it's, we're not done. I'm not satisfied until we get to zero.
yeah, no, I'm talking about, for example, the vouchers, that's enabling.
Well,
So
and
things like that.
Yeah, and that's a challenge because we don't control the distribution
Yeah.
of more than, we only control 10 vouchers right now. We can encourage the county and others to move their vouchers somewhere else. Some hotels reject vouchers, and so that's part of the challenge is another hotel may choose not to accept vouchers. And that's a policy choice on their business, right? And some of our hotels are accepting vouchers. And I don't believe that vouchers in Hemet hotels are a good thing.
Yeah.
Long term.
Was there a way to give those hotels some kind of incentive to not take the vouchers?
I'm sorry.
I don't want to belabor this.
How do we get them to not take the voucher?
Yes, that's, yeah, there you go.
Sounds like
We
a
do what-
discussion for another day.
Yeah.
We do what we're doing, which is,
Yeah.
We're going the wrong direction on it.
Sorry.
we shared this communication with the county,
Okay.
and they understand our feeling on
Oh,
this.
okay.
Can I make a suggestion for the ad hoc committee? We have heard two statistics today with our manning level that has not been heard in Hemet in years.
What are you
We
talking about?
need, we're within what, one or two bodies for each,
You have to
for the
be
police and
fully
fire
staffed.
department to be fully staffed. We need a big paragraph in that letter to council about
Yes.
that.
About upping the staff.
No, about that we're at that
We're almost
level.
at that
Yeah, but that's like.
staffing level.
So we want to show that there has been improvement.
Yes, we gotta show the
It's
improvement
not
in
enough.
staffing levels. Yeah, that more is needed,
I agree.
but we're almost at these ideal numbers that we've been looking forward to for years.
And I think that encourages people
Yes.
so they can
We-
keep backing the things
Just-
that are going on with Measure U instead of
Yes.
the negativity that's
Yeah.
surrounded.
Yeah.
Right, right.
with it.
Well,
Because people
yeah,
see
well, we
tax, they don't want to pay it.
Yeah.
You know?
We're gonna have, there's always
Okay.
gonna be a negative side to something, but
Yeah.
there's always the
Right.
positives, and we
Right.
show
That is a positive.
the
Right.
positives of how the Measure U has been benefiting the community for both police and fire.
And plus the crime going down.
Plus the crime going
Yeah.
down. So highlighting those positive aspects.
Yes.
We need to highlight that. Yeah, there are negative, but we don't want to dwell on the negative. We look at the positive so we can build forward for the future.
I agree.
Yeah, these numbers are up. This is, I mean, of any of the complaints I've heard from people out there that, we voted for Measure U, but we didn't get the bodies. Well,
Next time.
Yeah.
money was one problem.
Mhm,
The anti-law enforcement attitude that we've just gone through
mhm.
was a big problem. Old equipment.
Mhm.
And when I first came on to Measure U, the fire chief at the time brought in a set of turnouts that looked like, the old cartoon
Yeah.
hobo bag. It was
Yeah.
patched so many ways. And that was one of the big things we did was to go, yes, let's get this equipment replaced. I have officers that I worked with up north that I've talked to recently that said, hey, we heard that the police and fire are getting some good equipment. Their dispatch is being brought up, their personal equipment, da, 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 da. So that word is getting
Out.
14 hours north, which has their own police academy that most people that go there are paying themselves through it. It's not done by a department sending them.
Mhm.
So there's a big recruiting area there. So those are the things that Measure U has been able to do. But I really encourage you to put an attaboy type of
Mhm.
paragraph in there
Well, can-
with those
Can you
numbers.
guys help us with that and send us like your ideas that we can put into the letter?
I'll try.
Because you've got good ideas, I
Yeah.
mean,
I'll
and then
try.
we'll just incorporate them in
Mhm.
the letter.
I'm taking off for,
Yeah.
but, I'll see what I can
You
do.
better go home and do it tonight.
So this is where we want to make sure that maybe I'll take
Yeah.
a stab at it.
Yeah.
You can clarify if I get it wrong here. If there's any non-ad hoc members that want to share some ideas, what we'd like you to do is share your ideas with Tiffany, who will then. send
Oh,
it to
okay.
the ad hoc.
Oh, okay.
We'll just let Tiffany be the,
Yeah.
conduit to
Yes.
the ad hoc. I did look up the date of the county's release, press release on the point in time count. It took place on January 22nd, 2025. Last week, a week ago today, they announced a 19% reduction in unsheltered homeless countywide. And they also notably said that the growth rate dropped from 15% growing in 2022 to 12% in 2023, and now to 7% in 2025. So positive trends, no one's out of the woods. These are.
That's good to know.
these are,
Yeah.
improving numbers. No one's, I don't think, celebrating success yet, but there are some communities that have almost zero in Riverside County.
Mhm.
And there are several that have a lot. We're one of the larger cities in all of Riverside County. Clearly, when you look at the statistics, which I don't have a direct link to here, but we'll look for those and we'll just send information to the full committee so you have that same.
Okay, good. Okay, we need the information.
Mm-hmm.
This letter's gonna be like 20 pages by the time we're done.
It's better than a little paragraph.
Yeah, we
So-
saw that. We were like, it was.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna need clarification because.
I'm joking, I'm
on
not.
that,
Pages.
Is it expected that the ad hoc's work will come back before the full committee to review their
Yeah.
final product? before
Yeah,
we send it out?
I've seen ready to bring that up.
Yeah, so you're going to need to set a meeting between now and.
Okay, so
Before the
Let's-
third, right?
we could do that later when our adjournment. So because our ad hoc committee needs to complete the draft transmittal letter, I recommend we table the discussion of the letter to city council for the proposed measure use spending plan for fiscal year 25-26 to our next scheduled meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Mhm.
Okay, second. Okay, city clerk, may we have a roll call?
Righty. We'll do roll call.
Uh-huh.
Committee member Mott,
Yes.
committee member Benuelos.
Yes.
Committee member Kelly,
Aye.
committee member Moraz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clark,
Yes.
Chair Chanel.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0 to approve.
Okay, we'll move on now to item 6B, to receive our proposed update for fiscal year 25-26 Measure U operating budget.
Thank you. Let's put it up on the screen for everybody to see. It is also an attachment in the staff report.
I can pull it up on the email, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
okay. Let's go ahead and start here. So the first slide here is the methodology that we use when we break down the allocation for the general fund revenue. So we have our main general fund revenue, which is made up of the regular general fund and then Measure U off. So it's on the left and the right. And then you'll see the general fund revenue adheres to a 72% split to public safety, and the rest goes to non-public safety. And then that 72% is further split between police and fire by a 2/3, 1/3 split. And then the Measure U follows that same methodology with a 2/3, 1/3 split. And then we have the overall total of public safety, that's the $59.1 million, is about 78% of all general fund revenue is allocated towards public safety. And the rest goes to the non-public safety departments, which would be kind of like the city manager, city council, city clerk's office, finance, HR, library, parks. Those are all general fund allocated programs or departments. The next slide here is our liability insurance premium and the deductibles. I went ahead and I updated everything in red to kind of highlight the changes that are on these slides compared to the prior ones, so you can see where we've made modifications. But we have received another preliminary update from our insurance carrier where the actual premium for our insurance is dropping from 6.5 that we initially had anticipated to about 5.6 million. And furthermore, as of yesterday, it's now at $5.3 million. Still crazy high, but it's a lot less than what we were initially anticipating. So that is great news. We are still looking at the same SIR deductibles of the 2 million for non-public safety and then the 6 million for safety.
So how much of Measure U is paying for that insurance? Out of curiosity.
On this one, it's actually, it becomes like an internal service charge, so it gets dispersed again among all of the different departments. Within Measure U, I can actually, I think there is a slide here that does point out how much is going to. Let me see, and if it's not, I will let you know.
Okay,
for sure.
okay, I'm just curious.
Okay, okay. So this next slide is all of our resources, which is your revenue incomes. So we have it's rated from highest to lowest. So sales tax, of course, is our highest. The Measure U tax comes in right behind it. And I know Mark had highlighted, we're looking at $16 million that Measure U brings in. If we didn't have that as a revenue, there's no telling where we would be at this point in time. So then, of course, we have property taxes that follows that at 11.1 million. We have intergovernmental motor vehicle in lieu of license fee that comes in, that's at 10.5. We have community development revenues that are still doing great. We have 6.4 million, and that's due to ongoing development in the area. And then our franchise fees at 6 million, and that would be like the large share of that is from CRNR, which is our refuse. But we do also have franchise fees coming in from telecommunications and the gas and Edison, so other utilities that are paying their share. Our general admin is 5.6. This is actually the transfer that goes in to the general fund that is supporting all of the general administration, which would be like the city manager, the city council, finance, the city clerk, HR, all the departments pay into that. So you'll see that is sitting here as that line item. And then it goes on into further detail of everything else that we do have coming in. I did want to point out that we are looking at cannabis tax, which is new. So we're looking at getting about 200,000, and that's taking into account that we have one that's already in service and bringing on an additional storefront. So we're hoping that will continue to grow as more of the storefronts come in. We do have a maximum in the city of, I believe it's 5. So that does allow room for growth in the future.
Can I have a question on that? Similar to the problem with the non-reporting on the bed tax, is there gonna be a crew that's gonna go out and audit the cannabis to make sure?
Yes, that is a service that we are going to obtain with,
You know, my attitude toward the whole
Yeah.
thing, I wish we didn't have it at all, but that's a rampant possibility.
It can bring in a lot of tax dollars, though. I don't know how much
Yeah.
they're bringing in over there at San Jacinto and their cannabis stores.
Yeah.
It's a
but
lot.
auditing on a rotation really keeps them accountable. We did discover that through finally getting somebody on board to do the TOT, the transient occupancy tax audits, which was long overdue, but we are going to make sure that we do have that implemented with cannabis.
Good.
That and the planning fees and et cetera for new ones coming in. I don't know. I know some other cities have made some big money.
Yep.
If you want a license in our city, you're gonna have to pay X amount.
Yeah,
It's kind of funny that money just flows.
One of
Mhm.
one of the when I worked there. One of the stores who, at the beginning, they were bringing like $34,000 cash every month.
How much?
34 average,
Wow,
when they first started,
wow.
which the city of Paris, I mean, you guys have seen city of Paris from,
Yes,
they
I
have,
work in Paris.
you work in Paris? Oh, cool.
Yes.
I love Paris. I mean, I love him. I live here. But I was part of that where they changed the whole customer service and everything, but you'd be surprised because I worked at the counter and first, they were like the most professional,
Mhm.
easy to work with, never complained, got everything done. And everybody was concerned, like, oh, what about safety? And it's actually working out for them because they use all that money for a bunch of their events.
Mhm.
And the people love living there because they have so many events for the community. So everything's going back to the community.
Well, I know when the ordinance was drafted too, there was a lot that was put into the application process and what they're required. So it's not just some, couple of buddies popping up a
Oh, yeah.
tent somewhere. It is.
It is professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can tell from the get-go, they're not gonna fly, they're not gonna fly. Okay, maybe this one.
But I can vouch for the activities. I have students who talk about going to the activities they have.
Oh, yeah,
For
they
the
have
families.
a lot of activities.
Yeah.
I mean, I still go sometimes, just to say hi, but the activities are amazing that they
Yeah.
do. And the community is looking forward to every activity that they do.
That's great.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we roll into our expenditure side of everything. The numbers in the red on the right-hand column are numbers that have changed. They haven't changed dramatically, but they have changed from our initial take.
Okay.
The Measure U amounts have not because the revenue has not changed, so it's stayed the same. But we do have our police, it leads the pack at $31.1 million of general fund expenditures. And then fire 16. And then we have the police Measure U and then the fire Measure U, followed by public works at about 3.9. And public works for a general fund would be your divisions like parks and engineering are included in those. And then we have Department of Life Safety, which has building and code enforcement, and then admin services, which for general fund side includes finance and HR. And then we do have the community development, library, the city manager's department. Animal regulation is something that we have got an update on, and we were initially, I want to say it was around 1.3 million. And it has rose significantly with the new rates that they're proposing. So it'll be about an additional $500,000 more than what we had initially.
Is that just animal control?
It's animal control, shelter services, and it provides us with two animal control officers. And we do have to pay a portion of overtime.
Okay.
And I believe there's 13 cities that do contract out with the county of Riverside.
Mhm.
So they actually are beefing up their staff on the county side, but they're turning and the burden falls back onto the cities. So that's why this rate is increasing.
This is up from about 450 2 years ago. So we're paying 1.3 or more $1 million in just 2 years. It's tripled, right?
Wow.
The cost is more than tripled in 3 years.
That's
So
cool.
this is an area of opportunity,
Yeah.
which means we and other cities may want to have a conversation about finding a nonprofit that can compete with a county contract, because the county is substantially more expensive than what we were paying before.
So the shelter here in San Jacinto, is that county?
It's county operated. It's a beautiful facility.
Yeah.
It's just, we recently negotiated the contract with them, and it was about a $600,000 or $700,000 increase, which they gave us a number for, and we built that into our budget 2 years ago. But now that number has substantially increased again, and we need to understand why the number just came last week, right?
Mhm.
So we need to understand what is driving I missed a meeting. She attended the meeting last week where they explained what some of the cost drivers are, but it's not a cost of living adjustment. This is significantly higher than what we would have normally expected.
I don't know if I've discussed it with you before, but in the same vein of the auditing, I have a real problem thinking that we're not getting the services we're paying for with animal control.
Yes.
And I believe just starting out, the city needs to look at the county and say, prove that you've had these people working inside the city. How many hours? I mean, because I've had situations where I found abandoned dogs and things. I waited over 2 hours. Then said the hell with it and took them over myself. And I hear about this all the time. At the very least, my belief is they either should be setting like a professor at college does, office hours, where they're inside the city from this to this. Or at the very least, other than that, when they come inside the city limits, they call their dispatch and say, okay, I'm working Hemet now. Then they code out when they leave X amount of hours later. And the county can pull that up and prove to us that they've been here. I think that if we audit that, we're not getting the services. And the county's doing this a lot. What was the cities like Temecula that contract with the county for their law enforcement? There was an article, was it 20 some odd %? Do you remember?
Yes.
Have you seen that? That's what the county's telling these contract cities like San Jacinto that they're gonna have to pay starting this year. But that's a soapbox I'll be on because I don't think we're getting our money's worth. And that needs to be audited.
And then further on there, we do have the non-departmental, which is 5.8 million, and that has decreased. And that's due to the liability insurance premium that we have seen. The next one is just a continuation of our expenditures, but it's the use of one-time fund balance that we're going to be using. And then this also categorizes everything and puts where we are as far as a surplus or deficit. And right now, the end deficit is at $3.8 million that we're looking to, that we are going to have to dip into reserves to balance the budget. So one of the items that we have on the use of one-time fund balance, where it's the $2.1 million, a large portion of that is going to be the contribution to the Pension 115 Trust. Which is driven by policy. So that's almost 1.5 million alone of it. So you've seen that we have, since we know the revenues are slowing, we're really slowing down any of the one-time deployments of investments that we're making. So this list is much lower and less than what it was in prior year, but we are still trying to invest in like our kitchen grant program, the facade improvement program, community enrichment grants, vandalism relief for, storefront owners. We do have a digital sign repair for the library, which is long overdue. It hasn't worked for several years. We do have a full comprehensive fee study that we need to enter into every 5 years. So we're going to use one-time funds for that. And we're looking at replacing the front doors at the City Hall lobby. They are not really functioning very well. They stick and they don't close and latch. So this is something that does need to be addressed and looked into. And then we have Him at Beautiful and a beautification program investments that we're looking at. And then for the Measure U side, we are going to be using one-time funds for the radio program update of 39,000. And then Fire Station 3 is one of the most in need fire stations for improvement. And we have about $120,000 that we're going to funnel from one-time use of fund balance. So that is the breakdown from the prior slide here that shows us what is the itemized detail of that.
We can go online and look this up, right?
It is an attachment on the staff report.
It's
This,
linked.
yeah.
Okay.
This is where we have all the detail for the budget
Okay,
document. We don't really have a document
okay,
together, but these
Okay.
are part of it.
yeah, okay.
Tiffany,
Yeah.
when you say that we need to dip into savings,
Mhm.
is there a savings account versus our investment account?
No, we're going to use fund balance is what it is. So it's the reserve. So what happens is you budget for your expenditures that you know that you're gonna be spending, but the revenue isn't meeting that requirement. So anything that goes above that revenue just kind of pulls from the balance that is in the expenditure side.
Got
So that's how you're pulling from that fund balance.
Okay.
It's not really like we're transferring anything like that. We're just burning off some of that fund balance that's
Okay.
in those funds.
We aren't selling off investments to make,
No,
okay,
the investments and everything still stays intact. It's more of like an accounting thing that happens. It just happens in the background as expenditures come off. It hits fund balance as it is, and then at the end of the year, you close. And on your financial statement, you'll see where the surplus or deficit has happened.
mhm.
And you'll see that it'll be like a negative pull on all of that fund balance.
This is off the subject, but because a lot of people pass this by all the time, what is with that solar? Solar, whatever company that has all those solar panels out there, are they just sitting there doing nothing?
We do collect an annual fee on that. That's part of an agreement. So we do get a fee that comes in.
But I mean, but are they doing anything? Are they using those solar panels?
I imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
yeah.
It's not the city,
It's
but
a city of Riverside investment.
Yeah.
and
Oh, it is?
We receive contribution, we receive a check.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
because you pass that by all the time, you're like, what is going on?
There's also a height limitation in that area because of the airport.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting alternative to vacant land.
Well,
That answered the question of what happened after the company that had it before went bankrupt, so, yeah.
oh, okay, okay.
Okay.
And why is the warehouse on Sanderson and Kirby, is that gonna improve the road on Sanderson? Because they're gonna have a lot of traffic going in there off of Sanderson,
You're talking about the new.
the new warehouse.
We'll have the Whittier extension
Yeah,
out to Sanderson.
Right.
The road in that location's okay today, but these are areas where as those develop, we can get developers to pave and or repair roads.
Mhm.
Right now, they're having to build that new Whittier extension.
Yeah, I know that.
But Sanderson between, like I said earlier, there's gonna be a city investment next year. Actually, it's the contract going to the council next Tuesday. Between Stetson and Dominigoni. We need to make sure that the truck routes are in good shape the whole way, all of them. Because when we lose them, they're extremely expensive to build. They're built to a higher standard than a typical street. And they're often wider than other streets. So Sanderson's very wide over by West Valley High School. And it's, that is a very expensive project.
Yeah.
That was basically $2 million all by itself, that little segment.
Well, I would have thought when you negotiated with the developers at that warehouse, you would have put in there somewhere, you gotta fix the road.
Well, they
Depends on
do.
the warehouse.
They
They
pay,
do?
they
Yeah.
pay a ton fee, which is when it's commercial, or industrial, residential, they is charged per square footage
Oh,
of
okay.
the building, yeah. And then that money goes to, the city collects it, actually, no, now the developer is pays directly with
Mhm.
WRCOG, but that's allocated for Hemet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know because a lot of people are complaining about it, complaining about that warehouse. I never hear the end of it. Oh my God, why'd they put that warehouse there? The roads are gonna be destroyed, there's gonna be traffic. I said, well, thank God there's not a huge apartment house across the street from you. And the warehouse is much cleaner, much nicer.
Hmm.
But yeah, ton of complaints. Well, you probably know that. You probably hear it at the council meeting.
We do.
I live in that Switzerland world, right, where I'm trying to be in a medium spot, and I heard there were 800 local Hemet residents looking for jobs there. Maybe some of those were probably driving out of town. There were over 1,000, but 800 of those were Hemet residents, and so there are people probably driving to Ontario
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah.
other locations that maybe can stay in the valley.
Well, I think the people that are complaining about it are mostly retired people. The older
I
people.
wouldn't know that.
That
Well, I know that because I hear it from them all the time.
That 800, I would have liked to have seen the addresses to prove that that was
Yeah,
city
no, it
limits.
was,
of
it
Emmett.
was data they collected, but,
Yeah,
those were great numbers. I mean, that was impressive, what they saw. We'll see who they hire.
Well, they're gonna have competitive wages, right? I mean, hopefully.
You know, people have a choice when they get a job, right? I don't know how they'll make those individual decisions or what they're being
Yeah.
paid today, but
Mhm.
we know that we had a line out the door for 4 hours. And people waited for a long.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because we did have that RV place move out of California because,
Forest River.
yeah, California said you can't use that glue anymore. That's why they left, apparently.
I don't know that backstory, but I do know that they're not based in California.
No, they're not.
A lot of companies have moved manufacturing out of state.
So we do, that took away a lot of jobs here in Hemet. So hopefully, the warehouse is gonna compensate for that. But I'm so sick of these people complaining about that doggone warehouse. Wow, it's like, stop.
No one's allowed to touch the Amazon button.
Exactly.
Amazon button, no warehouse.
Well, do you know who exactly is gonna be in that warehouse?
It's a company called Rialto. They ship garments. And so they supply stores like, I believe, Walmart and Target type stores.
Well, are the trucks gonna be coming off of Domagoni? Or are they gonna be coming off of Ramon Expressway?
Well, it's probably gonna be Florida and Dominigoni primarily,
Yeah.
but they may go all the way down Sanderson and up to Highway 10.
Well, somebody said that they're building a huge gas station, like a truck stop or something like that out there by Ramon Expressway and
It's
Sanderson.
not in the city of Hemet.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
there
not
is
the
one.
city of Emmett, but
9 million square feet.
say what?
9 million square feet is what Sandy Senate wants to do. Change their planning from houses to warehouses. on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Okay, so.
That's interesting.
Back to the measure.
Sorry, we keep getting off track. Oh, well.
This is just a recap of the summary for the revenues in the 2/3, 1/3
Okay.
split. And then we have the spending plan that we have for police and fire.
Mhm.
In here, you'll see, let's see here, the internal service charges of 787, that's here for police department. That Measure U is funding. That is where you would see the liability insurance contribution. It's
okay.
not completely for that,
Yeah,
but it also pays for like workers' comp for, oh gosh, my mind is drawing a blank. For equipment replacement, there is fleet maintenance. All of the internal service charges that go towards funding the departments that actually support the city.
mhm,
That's where those costs come into. So that is part of that insurance premium. You can
Okay.
see.
okay.
So the lion's share of this goes, almost $10 million of Measure U is going towards staffing. And then we see the one-time use of fund balance of the 39,000 coming in and then going out. So you can say net wash. And the next slide is for the fire department. They get 5.3, almost 5.4. The majority of theirs too is all for staffing. So about 5.1. And then a small amount for their operating supplies. And then the internal service charges for them is about 250,000.
Mhm.
And then they have their use of one-time fund balance of 120. And then this is just a recap. Nothing has changed on this slide. It's still gonna be funding, so Measure U funds about 59 positions. So it's a little more than what we had mentioned before. There's one human resource analyst that it does help to do the recruitments of the departments. But you have 41 coming in police and then 16 in fire, and then there is one in public works that works on the Aero team that is funded through Measure U. So with that, that is the conclusion. If you have any questions, and then we want to go ahead and coordinate a date for our next meeting, so just let me know what would work. I know that we're trying to aim towards getting the letter by the 4th. I don't know if Monday the 2nd would work for you guys to meet, or?
Okay, before we get to that, shouldn't we have to go through and approve filing Measure 6B,
Receive and file.
the receive and file?
It's by consent.
Okay, so let's go through and do that, and then we can jump to that part. Okay, Tiffany?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay, Mike, thank you for your presentation. By consensus, the committee will receive and file item 6B for the proposed Measure U operating budget update for fiscal year 25-26. Can I get a motion to approve? Second?
A second.
Deputy City Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Thank you. I will do roll call. Committee member Ahmad,
Yes.
committee member Van Walen.
Yes.
Committee member Kelly,
Aye.
committee member Moraz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clark,
Yes.
Chair Chanel.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 to receive and file the presentation.
Okay, we will now move on to committee member and staff comments. So I believe that's to establish our next meeting date and time. So,
Tuesday, what was it?
Monday would be the second.
Monday the 2nd.
So,
Monday's a
Monday.
horror for me.
Mondays are not good,
Yeah.
okay.
Tuesday.
I'm good with any day, I'm good, I'm good on
That's a holiday,
Tuesday.
right?
Oh, no,
It is?
no, Monday,
Monday
Monday, the 26th is a holiday.
Oh.
On June.
It's 3-day weekend.
Are we talking about the 27th?
No, Monday, Tuesday, June 3rd.
Oh, okay, I'm like,
So,
it doesn't give us much.
That's
time
right
to do this
before-
letter.
yeah, because they need it by the 4th.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're gonna get together. and work on
Yeah.
this.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be fine because we're gonna get it done anyway,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
so June
I'm
3rd,
good with June 3rd.
3:30, does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
that works.
Okay. All right. 3rd. Need to make a motion on that one? No, okay. June 3rd at 3:30. Do we have any other comments, questions? Okay, with there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us today. All right. I'm all. Your hand.